Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to look at the next part of Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40k Episode 10, The Phantom Nemesis. And yeah, we're just going to jump right in. Last time, we got through the initial side for Star Wars. Sheev, Palpatine's devious plan, backfiring in his face because the next devious plan he had is conflicting with his first devious plan, so it's just kind of going like a devious plan fuckery. And it's glorious. Next up, if the pattern that we've seen so far is holding true, we're going to see the 40k side. Or jump to various other things in the Star Wars side. I don't know. It could go either way. I don't care because it's going to be fun either way. And if it happens to involve Palpatine maybe walking into a crap sandwich of his own making, all the better. Seriously, I think I love that the most just because it's well-written competence fucking itself up. I just love that kind of writing. It's very much me bait. So if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. Let's get started. Back on Coruscant, weeks later. Oh, I guess we're staying on the Star Wars side. Why did it take weeks? I guess they're taking a time skip. Forgot the Coruscant art actually looked pretty cool.
Mace was shrouded by his robe, wearing his hood up, his arms folded beneath the heavy sleeves of his garb. But though his eyes were hidden, they remained fixed on the Supreme Chancellor, watching with a silent intensity as the Jedi Master lingered in the alcove behind the Runian Senator's currently fixed platform.
So this is the second time he's just in the Senate room watching Sheev? Yeah, I know, I keep calling him Sheev. It feels so weird. I'm trying to get used to it. That's just me right now.
He did not blink, and did not watch with only his eyes.
Oh.
Despite this being
Did
the
he
very
notice?
heart of the Republic, Mace had long sensed a hidden darkness here. At first, he had thought it to be a general sense of the flow of things, but the more and more he moved to and from Coruscant, the more certain he became that this pall of shadow was something more local than he had first guessed.
Yep. He is figuring it out because he could feel Palpatine's activities.
Everywhere, strengthening despite the efforts of his order and the many sacrifices they had made for the Republic. Meanwhile, the Chancellor's vice grip over power in the Republic only grew more and more entrenched. The courts had been slowly but surely filled with his supporters, and while they railed against him now, the Senate was largely in his favor when it came to the handling of the war. And now, with this new threat, yet another opportunity was being presented before Palpatine.
I'm sorry, this is actually one of the funniest things ever. The way they're describing it is exactly true, and he's finally catching on. Mace Windu is very much laying out for us. Yes, he's finally aware of the plan, and the person it seems to be handing all the power to, it's like, even though he doesn't look like he's in charge of everything kind of goes his way every time. And there's this polish out. It's like, yes, he's figuring it out. And the reason he's doing it is because he's getting the exposure that they wouldn't have had previously with all of these meetings going awry, picking his interest, and probably giving him a little more insight. Because he's left Coruscant, he's done other things, he's seen what it's like everywhere else. So it's not just the Times, it's literally Coruscant. It's literally right there. You're seeing someone acting. This is the little butterfly from this being a type of introduction, a crossover, where he's getting so much more detailed information than he probably would have got as fast in Canon's timeline, because they've had to have other meetings showing things not going well. And the best part is he's getting this and everything's not really working out for Palpatine. And he's like, well, they usually do every time when it comes to the war handling. And it's like, yes, you're right, up until this one part, because this is actually annoying Palpatine. I love it when someone sets up a Xanatos Gambit. A plan after a plan inside a plan with a plan on the side of a plan, strapped to the back of a plan on a rocket of a plan, going to a spaceship of a plan, on a warp drive of a plan, that's crash into a sun of a plan, that's at the bottom of a black hole of a plan, that's somehow working on the thimble of a plan, and then it all backfires, and seeing someone catch on to that, this is literally just, God, I love this. I love this kind of writing. Its complexities falling apart, but writing it in such a way that you can see how the complexities would work, and then seeing all the ways they're starting to fray. It's actually very difficult because you have to establish what's going on. You have to understand what's going on. You have to make sure the plan makes sense to the reader, but also seems complicated enough that only a mastermind would do so. and then show somebody else slowly because like I don't get what's going on, but I see some of the signs. It's fun to watch this stuff fall apart because when it's done well, it's very enjoyable.
One which he could leverage to gain even more power, not just in the Clone War,
which is exactly what normally would happen.
In all wars. He questioned again whether or not he was making a mistake by going along with Anakin's plan. Would the Order's actions save the Republic?
Oddly enough, yes, that probably would help.
Further into the hands of the Supreme Chancellor.
Maybe
Mace was not sure, but he put the thoughts aside as he felt a light touch on his shoulder. It is time.
Wait.
The hooded
Wait. He said he was going along with Mace Windu agreed with Anakin? And decided to do what he suggested? Huh. I honestly thought he would be one of the holdouts. Huh. That is not what I was expecting. Also, wow, my eye is itchy. Weird.
Padawan said. Mace nodded, turning and leaving his place to be occupied by the messenger as he departed to meet with the others.
Little kid.
He took a speeder back to the temple, and from there flew his starfighter up to one of the many orbiting Golan defense platforms which guarded Coruscant. He docked and dismounted.
This might sound weird, but I don't remember ever seeing these in the movies, and they had a space battle. I think they were disabled on that one, though. Still, though, that looks really cool. Sorry, I like superstructures.
His craft going to the preordained place, shuttle base.
Dude, you can see where the ships are docked. I thought those were just random reflectors. No, they're docked ships. That is so cool. And they have an actual docking bay in there. And it might actually be big enough for a ship to fly in. Still, though, it's actually really neat because you don't see a lot of spaceship designs that actually take advantage of the fact that gravity doesn't really exist in space, except for what you simulate. And while most of this is very much a flat up and down congregation of, well, buildings, unless I'm misreading it. This part right here, the fact that they're docked vertically by comparison to the rest of the space station, that's just neat. That's so cool.
66. He kept his hood up as he moved through the station, showing his credentials to the droid attendant who approached him and entering the bay. The place was packed with refugees from Axum and
maybe not the best choice of image
those
for that.
Who had managed to escape before the outsiders had managed to enclose the system completely.
Oh.
A surprisingly large amount of civilians had managed to escape, but even so, that only meant that the refugee crisis which was now developing was only becoming more and more exacerbated. Nearly every single bay on this entire station, and many other stations besides, were packed even more densely than this one. There were easily 5,000 in this room alone, and Mace stepped carefully as he moved around huddled, shrouded forms, makeshift campfires, and rough temporary dwellings.
Don't see that
He
often.
found the exact place in moments, his unnaturally keen eyes locating the sign above the maintenance door, drawn in white chalk against the dull silver of the bay walls. The spread wings of the Order. He moved there, knocked twice, and entered. Within the confines of the abandoned maintenance room leaned and stood the robed and hooded figures of Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, Master Quinlan Vos, Master Shaak Ti, Master Plo Koon, and Forder Padawan Ahsoka Tano.
Okay, they're just dropping in the big names now, aren't they? Like, seriously, these are some of the most talked about figures from this time period. The fact that we're also getting this from Mace Windu's perspective, I'm just saying, like, what? Is Yoda just randomly going to walk in at this point? Well, that'd be weird, too. I can't even say it wouldn't be possible, though.
The center of the dimly lit room had been cleared of everything but a wide table, on which sat two hollow imagers, each one projecting their own holograms. One was of the planet Axum, the sphere rotating slowly, with several points across its surface highlighted prominently. The other was a figure, a Weequay male dressed in the recognizable motley of a pirate. Windu frowned, but said nothing as he
was
approached.
Not expecting that.
Took a lot to get this, let me tell you, and it was not cheap. No, lost more men on this than I did trying to kidnap the Ikani princess a few years back, the pirate was saying. I know, and we're thankful, Hondo, said Ahsoka. Thankful? Oh, you better be more than thankful, the pirate snapped. You will be properly compensated for your services to us. I will make sure of that. said Shakti, who loomed behind Ahsoka, her hood also raised. Well, as long as the Jedi in the room says so, I know how honest you tend to be, he said with a laugh. Of course, Mace Windu interjected. What we offer you will be entirely contingent on how useful what you have to offer us turns out to be. So, for both our sakes, I hope whatever it is you have to show us is worth it. The little hologram turned to regard him hatefully. Oh, you trust me, it's worth it. Mace nodded.
What is it?
Then why don't you go ahead and show us?
Okay, now this is actually an interesting little technique right here. They're building up this plot reveal, or maybe even an exposition dump that's going to be stored in the hologram. You know what I mean. But we're getting to it in such a way that it doesn't feel like it's a sudden out-of-nowhere exposition dump. Because we got the build-up of entering the scene, we got the setting, we got talk about the refugee crisis, how there's tons of people, how many people are in one specific area, but not telling us how many areas there are, just that there's a ton, because it's kind of implied because of the large station picture. And now we're getting to this point where they have the person who brought in what's going to be an info dump, and we have all of this information, and we're saying it's going to be information that's important, and we find that out because of a negative back and forth between the two characters, where one is like, you'll be compensated based on how valuable it is to us. I can't do the voice. I am not good at doing impressions, especially for someone who can actually speak well. Basically what I'm trying to say here is, this is a really cool way to make what's going to be an exposition dump sound like it's not. Like it's just part of the plot moving forward, which it is, but it's done in a way where you can actually tell something and it feels like you're showing it. Not usually well done. This is actually really nicely done, so I'm actually very appreciative of it.
Hondo seemed to step back and looked around. Aren't we still waiting for Skywalker? The pirate asked. Mace looked around, his eyes finding Obi-Wan. The armored Jedi shrugged, his face suggesting chagrin. Mace shook his head.
Obi-Wan's still armored now?
Was late to his own meeting. Proceed. We will brief him when he arrives, Mace said. Hondo squinted at him and withdrew a data pad from his ensemble. He tapped away at it a few times before stowing it again. Okay, now that that's out of the way, he said, pressing a button on his wrist. The globe, which represented Axum, glowed and expanded. We managed to ping a whole mess of targets for you. The smugglers have been having a field day. The new Imperial Authority is still completely clueless as to how hyperdrives work, and they don't seem to understand that small ships can still carry them. That being said...
Because bigger ships are usually safer because they have a more powerful Geller field, so that's what 40K thinks about. And while they have an advantage, they're also overlooking exactly what the enemy would do because it's so much of an out-of-context problem for them. Honestly, it sounds like if they really want to take advantage of that, the best thing they could do is just get a bunch of bombs on really small ships and just say, YOLO, bitches! Because that's such an oversight on the 40K side that it would actually be something they could take advantage of. If they could plot in advance how to get close enough before their guns would shoot them out. On the other hand, you could just lay a bunch of bombs that are small and would maybe hit them. And just fuck around a lot. Hit and run tactics would actually be very viable at that point. Until they figure it out, in which case that would be a less of an advantage really fast. But until then, overwhelming initial strike might actually be viable.
Don't
think they're going that way.
And they shoot first and ask questions never.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
He pressed another button on his wrist, and the globe spun and zoomed into a particular location. Displayed before them was a city, Azure City, a massive district in the urbanized landscape of Axum, and one of the wealthiest. In the center of the image was a pyramidal, flat-topped building, which was clearly of a different architecture than the city surrounding it.
Are they already building?
Made of stone braced with blackened iron in place of the gleaming steel of the buildings around it. It bore stacks upon stacks of gun emplacements, and already was adorned with many skull and angel-themed depictions. This is one of the many fortresses that the outsiders have been building around the planet.
They're moving really fast. I was always under the impression that Imperial construction was not fast-moving. This has only been a couple weeks, month or two at most. I didn't realize they could actually build that much up that fast. Especially with their depleted tech base, in the sense that they literally just have less. Huh. Interesting.
Said Hondo.
This isn't the bigger portion of the fleet either.
Only been a few weeks, and they've already built this much.
Yeah.
Asked Master Plo. The pirate nodded. They appear to deploy most of their buildings from space, mostly assembled before it even touches down.
Really?
Then they drop in these big boxes and pods, and when they land, the workers on the ground put them all together, and let me tell you something.
Huh. That's actually really interesting. They basically have modular buildings pre-rendered, or I guess pre-made outside of a computer, and then they just construct them in the sense that they're connecting the pieces rather than anything else. That does actually fit with how most of their building knowledge does seem to work because, well, I think that's actually how Hive started, because a lot of that was initially the ship that landed, so they just dropped it from orbit and built from that. Huh. Neat. Sorry, I like that. Again, while I normally think construction takes a lot longer in 40K, this is so cool, I don't care. So I'm just sitting here going like, yeah, you don't get a lot of that. Usually hear people talking about it, usually in the sense of fortifications and Rogodorn and the current stuff in the 30K timeline. But it's really just cool to see someone talk about, hey, this is how they build things. They prefab it, they drop it in, and they connect it. Yeah, that just works. And hell, for all we know, it might be part of a ship that was just part of the ornamentation that they made useful. Don't know.
These outsiders, they don't take breaks. They have cyborg slaves or something similar, and those freaks never stop working. It only takes them hours to start adding the skulls. As interesting as their work ethic might be, I gotta ask where this is going. You said they are putting these bunkers up all over the planet. So, I guess my question is...
And of course, as soon as you switch to the one Jedi who actually can be called cool, you got a little bit of a drawl there, drawing the word out a little longer. It's like, yeah, I can see that. That's cool. Nice little just vocal add or addition. Yeah, a little vocal addition to that.
What makes this one so special? Hondo smirked, shoulders rising in an internal wave of self-aggrandizement that Windu could feel, even standing light years away.
Big gun?
Well, my perceptive Jedi employer, the special thing about this base is that I am 90% sure that this one is the main one. And by that, you know that I mean the one from which all coordination from around the planet is directed. Mace rubbed his chin.
Do they mean that as the smaller fleet, or do they mean that as the local planet-only coordination point? One is bad for the planet, the other is bad for the entire fraction of the Imperium on this side. I'm assuming this is the... I was going to say red versus blue. Oh, fuck. It's literally red Imperium versus blue Imperium. Let's pretend I got that, and that I'm not just kicking myself because I literally just got that joke. I don't even think it's intentional. It's just a thing. Fuck it. Red team, blue team. The red team, I think, is on Axiom. I could be mistaken, though. They don't seem much like builders, so this might be blue team.
Interesting. What leads you to believe that? The Jedi Master asked. We have been intercepting their radio communications. After Anakin gave us the translation matrix for their language, it was not a problem to start figuring them out. Like I said, unless this is a very convincing misdirection, and I don't think that it is, this is the main place. Take this place out, and you decapitate their planet-wide CNC. That's a good start, murmured Obi-Wan.
Not entirely useful,
though. But even getting that far won't be easy. What do we know about their orbital defenses? He asked. Well, not much. But that's half because we know next to nothing about how their ships work, and half because there isn't much to know, said the pirate. Explain, Mason insisted.
What do you mean not much to know?
They only left 3 ships behind. Well, 4 really. One of the big ones, about 5 kilometers long, and 2 of the smaller ones. You know, the ones that only dwarf your ships by double the size. And the 4th ship? Asked Ahsoka. It's a Providence-class dreadnought. I think it was Admiral Trench's flagship before Anaxis got left to the outsiders.
Okay, yeah, that would be red team then. Also, they didn't scuttle the ship? That is actually weird to me. Don't get me wrong. I know there's plenty of people in 40K who are like, oh, hey, look at this completely now human technology. Ignore the Eldar markings on it. And that's completely the thing. That's usually rogue inquisitors, or sorry, radical inquisitors who can get away with shit because they literally have the Rosarius to say, fuck you. Or I guess the Inquisitorial Rosarius? I don't actually remember what it's called now that I think about it. Rosette, that's it. Imperial Rosette. Or Inquisitorial Rosette. But considering the red team, I'm going to get a kick out of that for stupid reasons, is the more religious faction that came, and they are very much in the burn the heretic. I was not expecting them to let the Dreadnought survive. I literally thought they would crash into the planet just as a fuck you. Because usually letting alien anything not die doesn't happen, and the more fanatical you are, the more you would hold to that in 40k. Which may or may not actually be the correct option, considering how religion is literally defense against the warp gods. Yeah, chaos is really fuckery. Yeah. This is actually very surprising for me.
It's docked and secured to the side of one of the smaller ships. I have no idea what they're doing with it.
Why it's not destroyed?
Mace's eyes snapped up at that, and he found the gaze of Master Obi-Wan already directed toward himself. The bomb, they both said, eyes widening in realization
that was on the
and
planet,
shock.
though.
Bomb? Hondo
Bomb.
asked, but the two Jedi shook their heads. Best not discuss that here now, but we will need to take care of that ship first before...
You know, I could see Anakin being the one to drop the security feature of, hey, don't talk about things that are literally planet destroying in front of the pirate. But really, Mace Windu chimed in too? Wow. Losing credits on that one. Joking aside, it makes perfect sense they pointed out here, because if they didn't, and they wait until later, the time frame between when it's relevant to when you might remember it, there's just far enough support, or a far enough divide in time that if one happened and then the other, which would be more safe when there's no one else to overhear, it would be doable, but you have to re-reference the scene. We're just saying it right now, gets it out of the way, and you could probably just hand wave away, oh, hey, we talked about something probably shouldn't in front of the pirate. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. It might even become useful later. But it's probably faster just to get the idea of the narrative across without having to add extra words later down the line to accomplish the same effect.
Or anything else, Obi-Wan said. Hondo shrugged at that. If you ask me, 3 ships should be too few to withstand the Republic's fleet, but I heard they took next to no losses at Pazab, so maybe it isn't
Tractor
enough.
beams with a wiffle bat.
I don't know, but what I do know is that from their initial invasion of Axum, we can easily see that they never shrink away from a good old-fashioned orbital bombardment. If you plan to fight on the surface, I'd make sure they were tied up just to be safe. He suggested. We will do even better, said Mace. We will show them that their technology and strategy are pointless in the face of...
The fuck is this image? Like, literally, you can even see her shouting, YOLO, bitches! As they're jumping into a blaster. They're not even trying to defend themselves. What the hell is this image?
The Force. Several of the other masters were nodding at this. A few even smiled. And, how are you planning on doing that?
What are they fighting?
Asked the pirate. Then it hit him, and his wrinkled face stretched into an unfriendly grin.
Oh?
You are going to board them, aren't you? Mace said nothing, not denying the statement.
Just get to the control systems
if
of the
you were,
part first.
I may have some special merchandise that could help you with that.
Oh?
And just what would that merch be, Hondo?
Okay, this is a good choice of image for Ahsoka. Some of the images fit, others are just there because it's the best option. This one, that subtle smirk, well, looking up, it just... That's absolutely perfect as far as I'm concerned, because it gets across the entire, I know you're about to say something. I know you're making a deal. Yeah, I know. We're going to go with it. It's just that subtle, yeah, I know he's about to fuck us over, but it's going to be good for us in the end. Look, it's such a good image.
Ahsoka asked, arms crossed, but a bemused smile playing across her lips.
Yep.
Oh, just some modified space rocks a couple of Verpine friends of mine were looking to get rid of. I could sell them to you for cheap, as long as you don't mind my knocks. Ahsoka smirked and looked at the others, who gave her their opinions without
you should mind the
word aloud. We will talk about that after this meeting, but they need to be made available fast, Hondo, or no deal, no matter how cheap, she said. But of course! If you were to pay this very second, I could have them in your possession immediately. And not that I'm trying to rush your purchase, or... The pirate started. Moving on. Once we neutralize their fleet in orbit, we will be limited in the number of objectives we can strike and neutralize. I think we are all in agreement that this main bunker must be disabled and placed under our control. That being said, I do believe we will have the numbers to engage in one more objective.
I know I probably shouldn't comment on just the image alone because it's not connected to the story, but goddamn, Samuel L. Jackson doing that crazy ass, I am going to be even more evil looking than the villain, when technically I'm the objectively good guy. Goddamn, he does that look well. It's almost a shame that he wasn't the villain. Granted, he said personally his headcanon is the Mace Windu survived because being thrown out a window in 40K or Star Wars really doesn't mean death. Especially when you literally have force powers. Look at you. Insert any person here who has any cybernetics and suffered significantly worse injuries and survived. Honestly, if they make a Windu TV series or miniseries, actually a Windu miniseries would be absolutely amazing at this point. Just call it Old Windu. I'm making a joke, but honestly, I would want to watch that. And if it's absolutely just him being an old, dried up guy who's just like, fuck all y'all, and just also still being Mace Windu, I would completely love every second of that.
Objective. What do you have in that regard? Said Mace. Well, the pirate said hesitantly, only two worth considering in my humble opinion, he said, pressing a button on his wrist and causing the hologram to shift, changing to the view of a massive, shining temple made in the style of the Outsiders.
Oh,
it appeared only half.
Interesting. They got the Inquisitorial Rosette near. I usually see that a lot on the building designs, unless it's specifically for that purpose.
Finished, but its central mass was mostly complete, and gold and silver filigree were being added along with statues and ornaments of the kind the Outsiders are being more and more known for. They've got something shiny and important hidden away in there, said the pirate. According to some of the people on the inside, they had an altar there first, with some big thing placed there, but no one was allowed too close to it. Over time, the altar became a chapel, and then a church, and, well, as you can see, more and more. Now it's basically a fortress, and it is almost as heavily guarded as the main fortress from before. So, what do you think they've gotten there? Voss asked.
This is actually curious to me because while 40K does do religious reverence, and then they go out of their way to protect those things to extreme measures, also showing one of the few times 40K does take PR into effect, because losing ecclesiarchy worlds is really not the biggest blow to the Imperium on a sheerly financial level or war impact. Sure, they would lose troop recruitment, but the biggest thing they got there is just troop recruitment, which the Imperium has so much of. That's never something they're short on, except they're always kind of short on it. But they're always so short on it that just one planet doesn't actually matter. But, just because it would be a huge morale loss to all of the different pilgrims, it's actually something they basically do play PR with. Yeah, it's just one of those things you look into, it's like, oh yeah, that is kind of how that works. Huh. Yeah, I just find that funny. Not really sure what they'd be protecting, though, because what would they really have to be reverent of here? There wouldn't be any land battles that would cause saints to happen. I'm not sure what they would be going on.
The scoundrel shrugged his holographic shoulders. I have no idea, but whatever it is, it's important. Even if it is just some religious artifact, it could be worth more than the planet itself to seize it and use it against them, at least to bargain with in the future. My inner pirate cannot look upon such an obvious mark and not, but they don't know that yet. And what else did you find? Asked Shakti. At this question, Hondo did seem to sober. You told me I was dealing with human supremacists. I never heard of the Pies Dia before, but then again, I'd never been one for history books. But I did my research before I sent my people in, and it did not prepare me for what they were doing. He pressed another button, and the hologram shifted to a compound. Every face darkened, and a few even gasped, as the view panned and moved.
I hate to say this, but by 40K standards, that's probably one of their more humane options. Not the death camp aspect, because let's be honest, it's 40K. That's exactly what I want. The fact that they're letting people at least work until that point, 40K is usually so fucked up that the entire idea of letting people survive long enough to be killed later is way more leeway than anyone gets. Usually it's, you are going to suffer, and then you are going to die, and that's if we like you, and you're on our side, and we're protecting you. If you're not, you're just going to die. Fast. That's it. Fuck you. 40K is not a nice place. It is really objectively horrible.
This is just one location of hundreds. I haven't really been able to notice if anyone is larger than the others, since the occupancy rates fluctuate so much, but anyone who speaks out against the occupiers gets caught committing crimes against them, or if they're simply not human, they get sent to one of these.
Again, the fact that they're not killed flat out is weird for the Imperium. I know by Star Wars standards, which is way more humane, this is objectively horrible, and it is. But everything in 40K is objectively horrible. This is, for 40K standards, fucked up, but still nicer than they do. Also, if you know what I mean. Yeah, they have some interesting pain bots. Yeah, you're basically a servitor at some point, but you only feel pain. It's fucked up.
We have to stop this, Ahsoka said, slamming her
she was
hands
in this
down on the
position,
table,
wasn't she?
eyes sickeningly fixed on the abject cruelty on display before them. Mace nodded. What is the point behind this?
Murder?
Are they drawing power from this somehow? Firing squads, living mass graves, forced
See, that's what I was
labor,
expecting.
gas chambers, death by dropping, death by mass drowning. It was almost as if the outsiders were themselves desperate in the execution of their nihilistic genocides.
See, that is what I was expecting. Just mass killing. Maybe they just don't want to use the bullets up, which is probably a smart move, because even though 40K gameplay and most books ignore logistics, it sounds like fans paying attention to that. Yeah, the mass killing sounds more accurate. Letting anyone live long enough is weird.
The only saving grace in all of this was that Anaxis and Axum were, by and large, human-dominated worlds. Watching the murder go on, Ahsoka realized that if this had not been the case, they may have chosen to simply ruin the planet from orbit in place of this horrific occupation.
Yeah, sounds about right.
There isn't any, Hondo said, a note of depression edging his normally chipper or indifferent tone.
That's just what they do.
They don't even bother to appropriate their possessions before killing them most of the time. They burn or bury you with everything you had on your person. Wasteful!
And this is one of the things I do like, because from their perspective, it is wasteful, especially from a pirate's perspective who's all about, do the stuff, get the stuff, that's what we're here for. It looks wasteful. From the 40K side, you don't trust anything anyone else has, for good reasons. One of the reasons I'm still surprised they have the Dreadnought. Because a lot of the times, things can infect you. Memetically, physically, nurgly, take your pick.
Not to mention cruel, terrible, and unspeakably evil, he said, adding in the last bit when Ahsoka shifted her glare from the hologram to him. You have to understand, I am not the most reputable businessman myself. Naturally, I have a high tolerance for the unscrupulous, but even for a man like me, this is in every way inexcusable. It is not even understandable.
I would love to see a section where Palpatine gets this report and all he's thinking is, they're stealing my plan. I just want that. I just want that.
If they were not dedicating so much manpower to doing this, we probably would not have been able to get nearly so much information as we did.
Oh?
Mace nodded again as the hologram shifted from a depiction of the horrid axe to the crest and symbol of the Crimson Razors. Give us the location of all of these sites. After we have liberated Axum, our first point of order will be to free these people as quickly as possible, he said.
What's left of them?
Except for the camp we're going to liberate during our initial attack, right? Ahsoka asked, turning to face the Jedi Master. He narrowed his eyes at her impertinent glare. And
as much as that is the morally right option, it also is the morally wrong option, because unless you have a way to get them off world, it's just not good. In fact, it might actually be worse to liberate them right now if you have no way to actually save them, or take over the world, or have some place for them to go. Or even just give them guns to form an insurgency. They'll still die, but at least they'll die shooting someone.
And shook his head. We cannot prioritize the liberation of any single one of these camps over our struggle with the new Pius Dia. If that temple contains something they revere, then it will save billions if there is any way we can use it as leverage, to say nothing of what it could teach us about them while it is in our possession. That's outrageous.
Unfortunately, it's also correct.
The temple will still be there when the fighting is done. You can have your prize then, she contended. We do not know that. It would not surprise me at all if all these radical Dia members chose to destroy their own sacred artifact before allowing it to fall into our hands.
Oh yeah, no, they completely would. We all know that from the outside perspective. But more importantly, they know how fast those guys can move, which we know is because the warp is calm, so there's nothing literally trying to eat them. Yeah, it doesn't sound any better when I say it that way out loud like that, huh? But it just... Taking the crueler method here is actually the smarter option because they can be reinforced very easily. Granted, I don't know how clear warp communication is now that the literal munchy bots in it are not there, but whatever.
Mace countered. He does have a point. Hondo's hologram added from the table. Intercepted messages have at least hinted to us that if the planet's defenses fall, they intend to detonate this structure to keep you from, desecrating their holy gains. That is part of the reason I mentioned it first.
Holy
The
gains?
Jedi Master nodded his head towards the pirate. Precisely. We must seize it before they realize the battle is lost.
What would they think is holy? They don't have anything from normal 40k here. And they're not tech priests, or at least I don't... No. While most of them are not tech priests, their tech was mostly a tech priest at this point, and barely a space marine. So this very well might be an imperial structure that's really a mechanicus structure. And then the holy gains would be the technology and all the crazy ass shit that's basically STC bait for the mechanicus. Yeah, that makes more sense. And that'll also explain why they're building a lot of things with servitors, because they just have a lot of ability to do that.
That will be the only way to ensure we obtain it, and whatever it represents. Besides, these camps will certainly remain after the battle, so I'd suggest you heed your own words. The former Jedi grit her teeth. But the people in those camps won't be, she hissed. This is not up for discussion, he hissed back. With all due respect, Master, you are being ridiculous. We are the Jedi. We shouldn't prioritize... She started. We are the Jedi, Mace corrected.
Did quit.
You are a concerned and appreciated citizen of this republic, but you are not a member of this order or of this council.
Why did you let her in then?
Ahsoka grit her teeth even harder, hands clutching at her sides, but she said nothing. Instead, she took a breath, exhaled, and began to walk towards the door. Well, since I'm not part of this...
Calling it now, she's going to do it anyways, which probably is the best way. I mean, causing any type of problem is a good way to keep people's attention moved around. And as long as they don't completely overthrow everything and just keep them at a point where they don't use the bomb until it's defused, yeah, that works. I wonder why the ship's there. Is like the ship controlling the bomb? Maybe that's why they haven't destroyed it yet. Didn't get that impression, though. I thought they had more control over it. Unless they're just keeping it around because it's wired in. I don't know. We'll probably figure it out later.
Order, I suppose I shouldn't be party to its decisions.
Yeah, why are you?
Pressing the access button to the side of the door and making to leave.
No, seriously, why was she allowed in?
He started to say, but a raised hand from Windu paused her, and the former Padawan walked out. Before the door could close, however, two more robed figures ducked in. One pulled back her hood to reveal the puzzled face of Jedi Master Aayla Secura.
Oh.
What was that about? She asked as she and the other came closer. A difference of tactical opinion, Mace said dismissively as he turned to fully face the new arrivals.
Technically not wrong.
He gave Secura a smile and a nod before looking to the one who stood beside her. Whoever he was no Jedi. That much Windu
was not expecting that.
And you are? He asked. The clone pulled back his hood with a stern but friendly expression. We've met before, General, he said. Commander Bly, Mace said, genuinely surprised.
Oh?
I certainly was not expecting your involvement in our order's less, official actions. Bly...
Wait. Oh, they're doing this unsanctioned. Oh.
I stepped forward, standing nearer to Windu, and rubbed his own chin as he seemed to take on a posture of intense consideration. Correct me if I'm wrong, General, but does this less-than-official action involve invading Axum ahead of the Republic vote in order to force a dedicated, proper counterattack on these religious
not so much an invasion, more like terrorist attack.
Windu blinked. Well, in a word, yes, he said.
Evasion's a strong
Bly
word.
Smiled. Well, what a coincidence then. It just so happens that I have a particular fondness for invading, counterattacks, and I have never had the privilege of visiting Axum before. Now I won't have to after the war.
And how many of his friends want to do it too?
The Jedi cracked a smile and clasped the clone on the shoulder. Then it is good to have you with us. I just hope you can keep up. By myself, sir? Not a chance. But luckily, I won't be on my own, the clone said. The entire 327th are willing to join our cause, Ayla said. Mace rubbed his chin.
How the hell did she get an entire division, battalion, whatever, to jump in? Also, weren't they relieved of duty? Wouldn't this be an entire clone division going AWOL? I mean, I'm sure Palpatine would be okay with fucking around with the enemy and having more Jedi die in really compromised positions, but I'm surprised that anyone else would let that go without comment.
Commander, you understand that you are risking a court-martial by doing this.
Yeah?
You and all your men. We are not acting in our capacity as generals of the Republic, but in our role as Jedi Knights.
Okay, so they still have the title.
Jedi, and this could be seen as desertion, or worse. The commander's face stiffened, but he nodded. I understand, sir, and I assure you, I would rather face 1,000 court-martials before letting my general go into battle without her army, especially if it is to drive out invaders.
Yeah, this is pre-Order 66, so they probably did have that type of loyalty, didn't they? And we saw in the movie, she was one that was gunned down, wasn't she? Yeah. If they all quit because they're deserters and they're no longer clones, when Order 66 goes off, would they all be immune because they never got the order? I mean, if they don't have the tech. I don't know. Again, I need to watch Clone Wars. I've been told it gets really good after the part I stopped watching at.
I know where my loyalties lie, and I am, as I have always been, a soldier of the Grand Army of the Republic. All my men are. Windu gave him a sharp nod. Then I'll question it no further, though I cannot promise that Anakin will approve of this alteration to his plan. What else?
Oh my god, Windu went rogue and changed Anakin's plan. Can you imagine? There has to be some small part. I hope there's a little comment of, Anakin's now the one in authority who's being countermanded by a person working with him. Not even just a Padawan under him. It was like, I'm going to go rogue and do my own thing. Yeah. And he's just sitting there going, I don't like how this feels. I know that's entirely that I'm between him and I was going to say Snips. But between him and, well, actually anyone under him that I think about, it's still fun to see another Jedi who's normally the hard-ass do that. It's just cool the fact that's Mace Windu.
Alterations. All turned at the voice, seeing two more robed figures enter the room. Anakin drew back his hood to reveal himself, face branded with his customary cocky smile.
Yeah.
Commander Bly and the 327th Star Corps have just, Master Obi-Wan started to say, though his voice trailed off as the second figure drew back his hood. Shakti shook her head, bemused, while Voss chuckled despite himself, and Plo tilted his visored face. Captain Rex, Mace Windu said, can I assume that this explains your lateness, young Skywalker? And can I go further and assume the whole 501st will be joining us as well?
Oh.
Anakin's grin grew wider. Nothing gets past you, Master Windu. Where's Ahsoka? I thought she would be here. She is waiting with the others in the bay outside, Windu said. Well then, what are we waiting for? Let's get out there. We are in the middle of devising our plan, Anakin. Do you want us to fill you in? Obi-Wan asked. No need, said Anakin, raising his hand to show off a hollow displayer disc he was holding. I've been having Hondo send me the meeting while we moved to get here.
Oh, wow. Information security you do not have. They didn't even clarify he was not or was doing that. One, smart on Anakin to do it. Two, dumb on everyone else, not even to check. Who else was he selling it to?
It seems pretty clear to me what we should do, he said. Windu gestured towards the table. This is your plan. By all means, inform us. Hondo, get those space rocks of yours here ASAP. We're going to need them. Also, you know those assault pods you use to board ships? We're going to need all of them. The pirate nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, sure, but I expect to be paid in full. Anakin then turned to Master Windu. Their strongest force will be stationed on their largest ship, which will need to be neutralized. That I will leave to you and Master Obi-Wan. Meanwhile, I will take the 501st back to Trench's flagship and finish what we started. We will neutralize the bomb and make sure it cannot be used, at least...
Oh, nice. He's taking care of the bomb. Still think the flagship might be a more important one, but it depends what kind of mechanisms. If they're triggering it from the flagship as opposed to the dreadnought, that might be the difference. Taking out both is good. The fact that there's only 2 Jedi on that spar of the attack, that seems like it might be a problem, considering one Space Marine, one tactical Space Marine, was enough to fight a Jedi. I mean, until he chose a different style that was way more aggressive and then, fucked around.
Not remotely. He then turned to Master Voss and Ayla. Master Quinlan Voss, you will be given the main force going to the ground. You are the most familiar with urban infiltration and assault, so we will be depending on you to take their main bunker. Voss smiled, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, eyes alight. Groovy. Master Ayla Sakura, you will take the 327th and capture the temple simultaneously. Ayla nodded, standing straight and determined beside her trusted commander, who saluted as she answered. We can do this. What about the last ship? Asked Master Plo Koon. That's where you come in, Master Plo. You and a detachment of pilots will engage them in starfighters. It's just one ship, and you will be flying with other Jedi.
Oh.
But if it does turn out to be too much, retreat back to Coruscant and get help. We will figure something out to hold off while you get back. The Jedi Master seemed to think for a moment before nodding. Very well. Okay, let's go. I'll fill you all in on everything else on the...
I'm actually a little surprised he didn't take over the starfighter aspect himself. I mean, I know fighting in person's his thing, but really thought he would be the one wanting to go full-on starfighter. Huh.
Way, Anakin said, turning back around towards the door. What's the rush, Skywalker? Mace asked, coming to stand beside him. The impetuous Jedi Knight grinned fiercely. The word just came in, a few minutes before I arrived, he said. Mace lifted an eyebrow. Then, Mace ventured. Anakin nodded. The Separatists just started pulling back all their forces, abandoning their weeks of gains. The Piasdia have reached their borders, and they are likely learning some hard lessons even as we speak. Now is the perfect time to strike. Both are...
Because the Separatists use droids, and that would actually be a bigger issue for Imperium Team Red than it would be for Imperium Team Blue, because Imperium Team Blue would not know that yet. Yeah, I know. It's going to be stuck in my head. I'm going to keep doing it, because at this point, it's just going to make me laugh if I think about it without saying it. Yeah. So they're probably going to focus more on the Imperium on the blue side, because they know they're there. And the red team will probably focus more on the Separatists, because masked droids is worse than aliens. Because one is abhorrent, the other is AI, and you don't fuck with that.
Our enemies are distracted with each other. We can retake an Axis and Axum in hours if we strike now. Mace nodded, eager to be on with it, though subconsciously grateful that Master Yoda would be staying behind to guard and watch over most of the Order's Padawans and Jedi of lesser rank.
Well, it's not entirely wrong.
As Anakin stepped out into the crowded bay and leapt atop a tall stack of crates, Windu could not help but feel optimistic about their chances. Anakin drew his saber and raised it high, activating it. The act was like the lighting of a beacon, and in response, nearly 5,000 hidden Jedi tossed off their disguises and lifted their own sabers in answer.
How many Jedi?
Tossed off, and in response, nearly 5,000 hidden Jedi tossed off their disguises and lifted their own sabers in answer.
So when they talked about the 5,000 people who were refugees, they're using the refugees as cover to hide a massed swarm of Jedi. Also, I did not realize there were that many Jedi. I really didn't. I knew there were a lot because it's an entire galaxy. But I was always under the impression that 5,000 would be a significant chunk of them. Although this could also be a significant chunk. And that's why Mace Windu was talking about Yoda staying behind, wasn't it? Because they're bringing a significant chunk of their non-kids. oh, this is going to go bad.
For Master Mundi, for
all the death
Axum and
flags.
Axis, for the Republic, he called. For the Republic!
Oh my god.
Answered the unified might of the Jedi Knights of the Republic, guardians of this galaxy for over 24,000 years, and now prepared for war in such a manner as had never been seen since the days of Rusan. The Chosen One smiled. He would give them
Calling him the
victory.
Chosen One, that's...
Even if it meant death, he would give the Republic its victory.
Dude. And that was episode 10 of Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40k, The Phantom Nemesis. And goddamn, they built that up well. I even like how the little aspect which talking about how many people were in a single pod. It's like, we have 5,000 refugees here. There's many more. And it's like, yeah, that 5,000 number was important because it also shows they're hiding in plain sight. And that's why they all have their hoods up, because they all look like refugees, huddled. And it also fixes when they showed the one Zabraxan couple who looked like refugees. They had the hood up showing what the refugees would look like, which I thought would be a little weird because it didn't look like enough people, but it had a picture of someone as a refugee with a hood. And that's what you needed to get out of that image to pull this later moment off. So it's a nice little moment here of seeing, hey, here's the dialogue and here's the art direction showing something that you need to get together. And we could work it together. It just worked to get that sudden moment of, oh, that's a lot of Jedi down. Calling Anakin the Chosen One in dialogue, or not dialogue, in narration, though, is weird. Because from our outside perspective, we know it was literally just getting rid of the Jedi to bring balance to the Force and then getting rid of the Sith to get rid of the other aspects. It's like saying, hey, all that old shit is gone. And then, of course, canon has basically moved away from that. So it's kind of like, hey, it's a title that didn't really mean anything. And just, yeah, it's weird. But I overall can ignore that because it was such a cool moment. The fact that he had the blue saber raised, it's a good beacon. It's a good piece of inspiration. So it kind of fits the usage of term. Even if from an outside perspective, it's just one of those, weird moments. So I like this. I like seeing the build up. And that also means the next episode is probably going to be really damn intense. Unless we completely switch over to this 40k side and see what they're building up to and what they're doing on their side. Which is what I thought would happen on this half, but no, apparently not. And I don't care because that was good, man. Still weird that they did bring Ahsoka into so many other meetings when she's explicitly called out as not being a Jedi. I'm assuming Anakin wanted her there and that's the only reason, but yeah, sure, whatever. All the same, though, if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. That was really damn good. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what I missed, because it's me. I did that. I'm aware. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.